وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأقرضوا الله قرضا حسنا.
Now we are at part 3, which is going over the Sabeel Zakat Calculator as well as the case studies. Now before we get started, the Sabeel Zakat Calculator is primarily for those who have attended the workshop. It is very difficult to misuse the calculator, but please follow the instructions on the calculator itself so that you can use it properly. The Zakat calculator has been reviewed by Sheikh Hatim al-Hajj. We went over the calculator, how it works, and some of the content that's being provided into it. The top portion of the Zakat calculator looks at currency, business assets, and real estate. So if we look at currency, for example, and we look at US dollars, we can put in the description as our Chase account. We put in the value of $10,000. It automatically expects this is going to be 2.5% due, as it is the US dollars as the currency. And so it will calculate zakat on the $10,000 at $250. The next type of currency that we'll cover are gold and silver. Now, this is gold and silver primarily owned by women, as that's the type of asset that's going to be applied. Gold jewelry that's owned by men goes under a different category that comes under haram wealth. So let's put in jewelry here. Now, how do you assess the value of gold jewelry? As we mentioned, that it's not based on the value that you purchase the gold for. That could be on the market rate, that could be above market value or under market value. To understand how much gold is valued at, you need to look at the gold price. So now we're at the gold and silver calculator of the tab. Now, the spreadsheet lists out the 24 karat gold price per gram. There's a link there, as well as the silver price per kilogram. There's a link there. So if we click on the 24 gold price per gram, it takes us to a website. Now this assumes for a 24 karat gold bar that the value is $73.10. We can come here and put in the value of the gold at $73.10. And in the description, we can put in rings. So we can put in all of our rings that we have. The number of carats is going to be based off of the gold that you bought. Not all gold are the same. Some gold are 21 carats, 22 carats. Sometimes there are 14 carats or 18 carats. It's very dependent upon where you've purchased the gold from and the type of gold that it is. So let's assume for a second that it is 21 carats, the gold, and the weight of all the rings that we have is 45 grams. It will calculate based off of the weight, the number of carats. It would calculate that the asset value of those rings is $2,878. And we can put as many other gold assets that we have. For example, bangles, there are 22 carats, and they're also 45 grams. It would say, even though the weight is exactly the same, but because the carats are more, you owe $3,000 on that type of gold asset. Similarly, the same thing applies in the silver section. Now, carats don't really directly apply to silver, and so we look at the silver price per kilogram. It's on the same website, and it says there's $843.67 is the silver price per kilogram. And so we can put the same thing here. And in the description, we put in, for example, necklace. The weight is 20 grams, and so it would calculate the value of that necklace to be at $16.87. Moving on to the next type of currency, we have our cryptocurrency. You just put in the value at $10,000, let's assume, and it will calculate that you also owe $250. Regarding the gold and silver calculator, we can say that we have almost $6,000 on gold and silver, so we just put that here, it's a line item, and we'll calculate the $150 are owed on gold and silver. The other piece is business assets, business merchandise, and business debts. Business merchandise basically means that the type of funds that you have, if you were to have a fire sale today, what would be the market value of them? And the last piece is real estate, and there's two types of real estate. There are real estate property and real estate property income, and they are handled in the same way that we have mentioned in the previous videos. Moving on to stocks and retirement funds. There are essentially the categories either stocks or retirement funds. And it allows you to, within stocks, you can choose active trade or passive trade. Again, if you choose active trade, it defaults the withdrawal penalty to 0%, if to the tax bracket to not applicable and 0%, and the zakat liable assets to all. As we mentioned, all active traded stocks are zakat liable, and so it would treat them as such. Stocks that are passively traded do not have a withdrawal penalty as well, nor do they have a tax bracket applied, but they do have zakat liable assets. And here you have 4 options: standard, custom, all, or Zoya. Standard uses the default 33%, as we mentioned in the video. The custom allows you to choose, if you have done the analysis yourself, it allows you to choose a value between 0 and 100%. If you choose all, it defaults it to 100%. This is saying that all of the value of your passively traded stocks are zakat liable. And then the last piece is Zoya. Now, how does the Zoya zakat list work? If you look at the Zoya zakat list tab, you can put in the values from the website itself. So we'll go on to Zoya Zakat Funds. This is the website. This is available both in web URL form as well as through an app. You can put in the holdings. You can put in Apple, and you can say you have 10 shares of Apple. You can also put in mutual funds, for example, SPUS, which is a Sharia compliant mutual fund. And you can say you have 100 stocks of those, and you can calculate it. And it says, based off of the value and the zakat liable assets within those stocks, it says you owe $11.93. You can simply copy and paste this, and it will tell you that it is 8.8% of the value of all of the assets in that brokerage account are zakat liable. Now, we don't want to calculate zakat liability on individual stocks. Rather, we want to roll it up at a brokerage account. So assume, let's say this all is under the Robinhood account. We put in Robinhood here. And then we can choose to put in the exact same name here, and it'll look up what the value should be. And it says 8.8%. We put in $10,000, and it'll say you owe $21.90. But that's assuming it's $10,000. If we take the value of those stocks, it's $5,448. So we put the same thing here. And you owe $11.93. Moving on to retirement funds. There are 2 types of retirement funds that we're covering: traditional IRA and Roth IRA. Again, if you have a 401k, if you have a 403b plan, they go into the traditional IRA. If you have a 529 college savings plan, they go into the Roth IRA. We can put in a name of the brokerage firm that you have. We can go through withdrawal penalty. For a traditional IRA, the withdrawal penalty should be 10%. The tax bracket is defaulted to 30%. Why do we use 30%? Typically, most of the people in New Jersey have a 24% federal tax rate plus a 6% New Jersey state income tax rate, and so generally it comes out to about 30%. But if you're aware of your own specific tax bracket, you may choose custom and choose a value that's appropriate to you. So in this example, we'll just go with standard, 30%, and the zakat liable assets we'll say are standard at 33%, and we'll put in $100,000. So on $100,000, 5% of that will be zakat at $520 you owe. Similarly, for the Roth IRA, it follows the same course of action. Moving on to loans and debts. You have 2 options within loans. You can put debts owed to you that are hard and debts owed to you that are soft. And then within debts, you have debts in general, that debts you owe. Anything that you put in debts you owe will be deducted from your overall asset value, and you won't pay zakat on those. For example, our total asset value right now is $131,448. Let's say you have $10,000 in debts. Now your total asset value becomes $121,448, and your zakat is calculated accordingly. Upcoming expenses works very similarly to debts. It deducts it from your overall asset value. There's a lot of material that's been covered in this, specifically between the slides, the video, and we've provided a summarized version of some of the rulings behind some of the different types of zakatable assets. whether it be currency, business assets, real estate, gold and silver, stocks, retirement funds, so on and so forth. We've also provided a Zoya calculator link and links to the scholarly opinion between Fiqh Council of North America, Sheikh Hatem Al-Hajj, and AMJA. We've also provided a sample zakat calculator that lists out generally how people can use the calculator itself, so you can use it as a reference in the future if you need it. So in this part of the video, we'll go over the case studies. The first case study that we'll go over is Khalid is a young working professional that lives on his own. He currently has $20,000 in his checking account and pays $1,800 in rent per month. He has invested $4,000 in crypto, and that is currently depreciated to $3,000. Currently, he owns about $2,500 in stock in his company that he does not plan on selling anytime soon. He has about $15,000 in his traditional retirement fund, and he's recently married. Khalid has a credit card bill from his wedding of $20,000. He owes meher to his wife of $5,000 that is due this year. How much zakat does Khalid owe? So, first thing we'll do is we'll enter what is relevant to this, and so we'll start with the checking account. We'll go into currency. We'll go into the type of checking account. It is a US dollars. We'll put checking account here. And he has $20,000. Then he has, the next asset that he has is listed as he invested $4,000 in crypto, but it's only currently valued at $3,000. So we'll use the current value of the asset regardless of how much he had invested. So we'll use currency, and we'll use a cryptocurrency as the type, and we'll put crypto here, and we'll put $3,000. His next asset that he has is $2,500 in stock in his company, so we'll use stocks that is passively traded, and we'll call this ESPP. ESPPs, passively traded stocks, don't have any tax, nor are they, do they have a withdrawal penalty applied to them. And so, since we don't know what company that Khalid works on, we'll use the standard zakat liable assets at 33%. And we'll put $2,500 here. The next asset that he has is he has $15,000 in his traditional retirement fund. We'll use traditional IRA. We'll call this Fidelity. For traditional IRAs, there is a 10% withdrawal fee. We'll assume his tax bracket is the standard 30%. And for the zakat liable assets, we will say that he has, there are 33% of the IRA is zakat liable, and we'll put $15,000 here. So he has $40,500 in total asset value. This is before putting any type of deductions or expenses in. So we'll move on to the loans and debts portion to see how much debt he has. For debts he owes, we'll put meher at $5,000. The next type of debt that he has is a credit card bill. And we'll put credit card at $20,000. And the last piece that we want to put in for upcoming expenses is his 1 month worth of rent. And so we put in upcoming expenses, rent at $1,800. So his total asset value, after accounting for all deductions and debts and expenses, is $13,700. Now, this is being applied, and so the total zakat due is based off of the zakatable assets that he has right now, accounting for currency, accounting for some of the 401k retirement funds, as well as deducting any type of debt from it. So case 2 is Abdullah and Amina are a married couple who started working 4 years ago. Both need to pay zakat this year. Abdullah has $45,000 in his checking account and owns $15,200 in stocks that he actively trades. His retirement fund has $65,000 in traditional and $20,000 in Roth. Amina has $38,000 in checking, gold jewelry that's weighed at 105 grams, and a diamond ring valued at $5,500. Her traditional retirement fund has $40,000, and a few months earlier, the couple bought their first home, putting $50,000 down as a down payment. Their monthly mortgage payment is $4,400 that they evenly split. So how much zakat do they each owe? Now, everyone is responsible for their own zakat, as we mentioned, and so Abdullah and Amina should calculate their zakat separately. So we'll start off with Abdullah's first. Abdullah has $45,000 in his checking account, which we have listed out here. He also has $15,200 in stock that he actively trades. Therefore, the withdrawal penalty would be 0%. The tax bracket would be 0%, as well as the zakat liable assets would be 100% because 100% of the zakat, the zakat liable assets would be 100% because all of it would be treated as zakat liable. His traditional IRA has $65,000, and so we will use a withdrawal penalty of 10%, tax bracket of 30%, and a zakat liable asset of 33% to calculate how much zakat he owes. Lastly, his retirement fund, which is a Roth IRA, has $20,000 in it, and so we will use a withdrawal penalty of 10% as they just started working 4 years ago, and so most likely the account is less than 5 years old, and so there will be a withdrawal penalty of 10%. They're benefiting from a tax-free growth, so the tax bracket would be 0%, and their zakat liable asset would be 33% at the standard rate. Their monthly mortgage is $4,400, which Abdullah is responsible for $2,200 of it. And so we've listed that out in the upcoming expenses. Abdullah's total asset value is $143,000, of which he owes $1,936.34 as his zakat this year. Moving on to Amina's. Now, Amina's checking account had $38,000, so we listed that out as US dollars under currency. She also had gold that was valued at 105 grams. And so we have our gold and silver zakat calculator. And when we click on the current price of gold and silver, it says that $73.97 is the price for gold per gram for 24 carats. Now we need to factor in the number of carats that she has. And so assuming, as the case study hasn't specified, we'll assume that she has 21 carats of gold. And we'll put in the 105 grams, and so she has her value of the gold of 105 grams is $6,792. Now, one of the things that you must remember is that the weight of the gold is supposed to be the gold itself. If there are any stones, if there's any types of rubies or diamonds or any types of stones that are attached to the gold, they should not be counted in its weight. And this is the value of the weight of the gold itself and not anything that's extra to it. So we'll put that in her under currency for gold and silver. We'll put that as $6,792. Now her retirement fund, she has a traditional IRA at $40,000, and so her withdrawal penalty would be 10%, her tax bracket would be 30%, and her zakat liable asset would be 33%. Again, she's responsible for 50% of the mortgage payment, and so we put that in the upcoming expenses as $2,200. Her total asset value is $82,592, of which she owes $1,272.70 as her zakat. Okay, so case 3 is Zayd and Zainab are a couple with 2 children. Zainab is a stay-at-home mom that has $11,000 in her checking. Gold jewelry valued at $8,500. Her Roth retirement fund has $52,600. Zayd has $42,000 in his $42,800 in his checking, and $155,600 in his traditional retirement fund. Zayd also has $35,875 in stocks in Robinhood, and $5,000 in stocks, $5,000 in Bitcoin, both intended for long-term investment. His stock portfolio in Robinhood has 100 Apple stocks, 220 HLAL mutual funds, and 220 SPUS mutual funds. Zayd also pays $2,900 in his monthly mortgage payment, of which he has already paid off $88,000. Now, the $88,000 of the equity is not relevant here, as the house that you live on will not have any zakat due on it. But again, because their cases presented together, we'll have to split out their case, as they're both responsible for their own individual zakat. We'll start off with Zainab's zakat. So Zainab's has $11,000 in her checking account and $8,500 that is the value of her gold and silver. Her Roth IRA has $52,600. Now, because it doesn't specify how long she's been working for or how old that account is, we'll default to the withdrawal penalty of 10%, but no tax bracket would apply as she is benefiting from a tax-free growth. We'll assume these zakat liable assets at 33%, and she has no loans or debts or upcoming expenses. Therefore, her total asset value is $72,100, and her total zakat due is $878.06. So for Zayd, his zakat calculator will put in his asset value. So Zayd's checking has $42,800 in his checking account, and his Bitcoin investment is $5,000. Now, it doesn't really matter whether it was a long-term, a short-term. Cryptocurrency is handled as currency, and the entire value of that is zakatable. Moving on to his retirement funds. He has $155,600 in his traditional IRA, using a withdrawal penalty of 10%, a tax bracket of 30%, and a zakat liable asset of 33%. He owes $808 for his traditional IRA specifically. The other piece that we want to highlight is that he has stocks in a passively traded Robinhood account. Now, we'll use this moment to go over how to calculate zakat on specific stocks as they have been listed out. And so moving on to, we'll click on the Zoya link. We'll add the different types of stocks that he has. So he has Apple. He has 100 stocks of Apple. We'll also add, he has HLAL, and he has 220 stocks for that. And then we'll add SPUS, and he has 220 stocks of that mutual fund. And so all of his stocks in Robinhood are valued at $35,875, as you can see here. And so what we'll do is we'll copy this line item and we'll paste it into our zakat calculator in the Zoya zakat list, which automatically calculates that 8.7% of the entire asset value is zakat liable. And so we'll put in the brokerage account here that correlates to what we'll have in the zakat calculator itself. And we'll click the zakat liable assets option to be Zoya, and it automatically displays the 8.7% that was displayed there. And so we'll put in $35,875. And the last piece that we want to put in are the upcoming expenses. So he has a $2,900 monthly mortgage, and so we put in 1 month's worth of mortgage deduction. To calculate, he has his total asset value is $236,375, and he owes $2,009.22 for his zakat.